caffeine. I don't recommend taking it before speech or having any. Wow, it makes everything so much worse.
Yeah, it's true.
All right, now for this current speech, I said I was ready, but I do feel that it's incomplete, at least the thoughts and maturation. I don't feel they are quite there, but without further ado, let's begin. All right. The mystery of life is not a problem to be solved, but a reality to be experienced. When you speak, it's silent. When you're silent, it speaks. And slowly your thoughts will come to silence. And in the silence, you suddenly begin to see the world as it is. You don't see any past. You don't see any future. You will see that we live in an eternal now. There is only the eternal now. Alan Watts and Kierkegaard for the first sentence. Now, in the following, I will use a lot of I's and some personal examples, and I encourage you to look at this as a portrait of what some of you may have thought or have done in darker moments. And if none of this relates to you, well then, tough toenails, because in a roundabout way, you paid to listen to me ramble on for the next 5 to 7 minutes. And I had heard this quote in a song by the rock band or hard rock band, Nothing More. They use it as an interlude, the second part of the song called Tired of Winning / Ships in the Night. And for about a month, I had listened to it, or I heard the lyrics, just the quote in the song, for the same way most people hear some songs in passing. You know, it's in one ear, out the other. It adds a nice little thing. It sounds good. You move on. But now I listen to this, I repeat this quote to myself every day. Why? Well, my team in my men's group challenged all of us to spend or actively pursue a moment of silence or stillness in our day, every day for a week. And here's what came about when I cast out all my distractions and just went outside on the porch, sat on the chair, and looked at the horizon. This thought also came with help, courtesy of a cat that kept trying to scratch my leg, bite my leg, put holes in my shorts, and eventually he put a hole in my leg. And while he is a different species of cat that wants attention 24/7, and he will claw off your left testicle to do it, and that didn't happen, but not for lack of trying. The thought took me back to my first couple therapy sessions. My therapist, after discussing some lack of confidence coming from how little I cared about myself, past tense, we're good now, wanted me to look in the mirror and point out one thing I liked about my character or my physicality or something like that, and say it to my reflection. And the whole process took me about 5 minutes. Half the time I was sitting there kind of making jokes with my therapist or trying to avoid it, calling this process silly. What else do you do when you're very uncomfortable? Eventually I just said my eyes because I wanted the whole thing to end. I was like, so there's that. And what I understood now, at least a little bit more than I did before, was that we should be able to care for ourselves as we would another. And of course I've heard this, but I was starting to see it. And a better example of this, a while back, I locked myself out of the house. I was going down to the pool to swim, and I leave my phone behind because I don't like any distractions when I'm exercising. And I had my keys, but I had my house key separate at the time because I just moved in and it was all for that. I wasn't thinking. My buddy's like, "You have your keys?" I'm like, "Yeah." I go down, I swim, I go back up to the house, and I just kind of like bang my head on the door because he's out on a date. I have no phone. I have no key to the house. And I was just like, okay, what am I going to do? So I go back down to the pool just to see if I can kill time until my buddy gets back. And I'm just swimming around, and this family comes in. Well, family, a father, I think his friend, and then a son. Now, the dad and his friend are hanging out in the jacuzzi, and his son's swimming back and forth in the pool. And I'm just kind of like going back and forth in the pool too. And then at one point he starts swimming towards my direction. I try and speed up, get out of his way, because he looks like he's on a mission. And all of a sudden I just hear splashing on something, and I look over and I just catch his eyes, and he says, "Help." And obviously I stop what I'm doing. I don't think anymore. I grab the kid, I pull him to the ledge. I prop up my knee and I start rubbing his back, and I said, "You're okay. You're safe. There's nothing. I just wanted him to feel safe, right?" And in that moment, I offered unconditional love for someone I had never met. And of course, looking on that moment, I just think, like, how do I enable myself to empathize with myself the way I would with a complete stranger? And what I found to be the most useful in this practice, and wonderfully summarized in Ted Lasso, is be curious, not judgmental. Now, allowing curiosity to be at the forefront takes away from expectations and judgment. Expectations being the idea that you have control of the outcome. Accepting that the outcome is out of your control lessens anxiety greatly, well, at least for me. And it no longer matters what the result is because you have no control over it. You can try and direct the results in your favor, but ultimately it comes down to how much you giving what you can, and just what will be will be. Judgment, especially judgment of self, is generally a reflection of past actions. And what I've come to repeat to myself to move on from this self-flagellation is that the past is gone, so take the lesson and come back to where you are. Stories of a distant past can often deride and devalue, especially through the passage of time. Even the judgmental stories of a more immediate past can be altered by our perceptions and bring about false conclusions. And often we become the stories we tell about ourselves. So take the lesson and let the past rest, as it is no truer than the future. And curiosity doesn't care about judgment. It just wants to experience. It wants to learn. Curiosity welcomes the unexpected as it is fresh and lively. It craves uncertainty. And the problem here is rewiring that pathway that's fired the same way for years. So, in an attempt to rewire, and in the interest of self-love, I repeated in my head, it's okay to not have everything under control. It's okay to not be perfect at everything. It's okay to fail and learn. Simple things, but it brought some tears up. I didn't even realize how much I was holding in silent judgment. I had a covert contract to scorn myself. But each day, inch by inch, with intentional measures, I get closer to being curious and not judgmental, to existing now and letting myself be free from nonsensical, conditional self-love. And if you relate and can scarce remember most of what I said, because let's face it, I can barely remember all of it, recall this: there is no past. Letting go of the past frees you of who you thought you must be. There is no future. Dropping expectations lets you be where you are. And while knowing this and understanding this are very different mountains, they are only separated by practice. Thank you.